What is going on, everyone? So, it's January 2026, and if you're planning on hopping on a plane anytime soon, you need to stop what you're doing and listen up because the world of travel has just changed in a major way. I'm not talking about smaller airline seats or paying for carry-ons. I'm talking about brand new federal rules and international requirements that kicked in as soon as the ball dropped on New Year's Eve. The terrifying reality is that thousands of Americans are going to get to the airport this year, bags packed, excited for their trip, only to be turned away at the gate. I don't want that to be you. Today, we're diving deep into the new passport rules and border security measures that are now in full effect. We're going to make sure you have the right documents, the right information, and the right game plan so you don't get denied. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you want to stay one step ahead of all these crazy travel changes and make sure your vacations go smoothly, do me a huge favor and smash that like button. It really helps get this crucial information out to more people. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring that bell so you're the first to know when we drop updates like this. You seriously cannot afford to be out of the loop on this one. All right, let's set the stage. You might be thinking, I have a passport, it's not expired, I'm good, right? Wrong. The landscape has shifted beneath our feet. Just last month, in December 2025, we saw a flurry of new presidential proclamations and executive orders focused on tightening border security. While a lot of the headlines were about restricting entry for nationals from certain countries, the ripple effect is huge for everyone. This new era of extreme vigilance means that even as a U.S. citizen, you should expect significantly more scrutiny when coming back into the country. We're talking about expanded biometric screenings at airports, more facial recognition, more fingerprinting, and a general atmosphere where border protection agents are taking a much closer look at everyone's travel history and documentation. The days of a quick wave-through at customs are quickly becoming a thing of the past. This isn't just about having a passport anymore. It's about having a passport that stands up to this new level of checks and being prepared for a much slower, more intense process at the border. Now, to fully understand where we are today, we have to rewind a bit to a massive change that happened last year, which many people are still unprepared for. Remember the Real ID Act? After years of delays, full enforcement finally hit on May 7, 2025. If you've been living under a rock, here's the deal. Your standard state driver's license is no longer enough to board a domestic flight unless it has that little gold or black star in the corner. If your license says federal limits apply or something similar, the TSA is not going to let you through security. I know so many people who got caught out by this last summer. They showed up for a flight to visit family in another state and were told their ID was no longer valid for flying. So, what was the backup plan for all those people? Their U.S. passport. Suddenly, your passport wasn't just for that once-in-a-lifetime trip to Europe. It became your essential, everyday travel document just to fly from New York to Florida. This shift has put an immense amount of pressure on the passport system, and it's made having a valid, up-to-date passport more critical than ever before. If you're one of the millions of Americans who still hasn't upgraded their driver's license to a real ID, your passport is literally your only ticket to ride on a commercial plane, domestically or internationally. That means if you let it expire, or if it gets damaged, you are completely grounded until you can get it replaced. And let me tell you, that is not a quick process right now. Speaking of Europe, that brings us to one of the most earth-shattering changes for U.S. travelers that is looming on the horizon for later this year. For decades, we've had it incredibly easy. We could just decide on a whim to go to Paris, Rome, or Barcelona, book a flight, grab our passport, and go. No visas, no paperwork, just show up and get stamped in. Well, my friends, that golden age of spontaneous European travel is officially ending. Starting in the last quarter of 2026, the European Union is rolling out a new system called ETIAS, which stands for the European Travel Information and Authorization System. This is not a visa. They are very careful to point that out. But it is a mandatory pre-travel authorization that you must have before you can even board a plane headed to most European countries. Think of it like the ESTA system that visitors to the US have had to use for years. Before you travel, you will have to go online, fill out a detailed application with your personal information, passport details, and answers to security questions about your health, criminal history, and past travel to conflict zones. You'll have to pay a fee, and then you have to wait for approval. While most applications are expected to be approved quickly, within minutes or hours, some could take up to a month if they get flagged for manual review. Imagine booking a non-refundable dream vacation for this Christmas, only to find out a week before you leave that your ETIAS authorization is stuck in pending status. You wouldn't just be denied entry upon arrival. The airline wouldn't even let you check in for your flight, and it gets even more intense. Before ETIAS is fully up and running, Europe is launching another program called the Entry-Exit System, or EES, which is scheduled to start in late 2025. This system replaces the traditional passport stamp with a high-tech digital registry. When you arrive in Europe, you'll have your photo taken and your fingerprints scanned to register you in their database. This is to track exactly when you enter and leave the Schengen area to ensure you don't overstay your 90-day limit. So, the combination of EES and ETS means that your travel to Europe is going to involve a lot more digital scrutiny, biometric data collection, and advanced planning than ever before. You can no longer just rely on your passport alone. You need your passport plus this new digital approval. This is a massive psychological shift for American travelers who are used to hassle-free access to Europe. So, let's talk about that pending nightmare scenario. One of the biggest mistakes people are going to make this year is treating ETIAS like a last-minute to-do item. While the official line is that most applications are approved in minutes, the reality of government tech systems is that glitches happen and manual reviews take time. If your application gets flagged for any reason, maybe you have a common name that matches someone on a watch list, or there's a typo in your passport number, you could be looking at a 30-day wait. My advice? Apply for your ETIAS at least a month before you even think about heading to the airport. Once it's approved, it's valid for 3 years or until your passport expires, whichever comes first. It's better to have it sitting there ready to go than to be frantically refreshing your email at the check-in counter. But here's the kicker, and this is where it gets really tricky for 2026. Your passport might look perfectly fine, it might have years left until the expiration date printed on the page, and yet it could still be technically invalid for your specific trip. This is because of the dreaded 6-month rule. Most countries, especially in Asia, the Middle East, and parts of Europe, require your passport to be valid for at least 6 months beyond your date of departure from their country. If you're heading to Thailand in June and your passport expires in August, you aren't going. The airline will likely flag this during check-in, and they will literally refuse to give you a boarding pass. They have to, because if they fly you there and you're denied entry, the airline gets slapped with a massive fine and has to fly you back on their dime. Even if you're just going to Europe, they usually require at least 3 months of validity after your planned stay. But here's the pro tip for 2026. With all the new digital systems like EES and ETS coming online, these rules are being enforced more strictly than ever. The automated gates at the border don't have discretion. They don't care if you promise you're only staying for a weekend. If the math doesn't work out on their end, the gate doesn't open. So, the new golden rule for travel this year is the 66 rule. You should have at least 6 months of validity left on your passport at all times, and you should aim to renew it 6 months before it actually expires. This gives you a massive safety buffer and ensures you never run into these stealth expiration issues. Speaking of renewing, If you realize right now that your passport is getting close to that danger zone, don't panic, but do move quickly. As of right now, in early 2026, routine processing times at the State Department are hovering around 4 to 6 weeks. That sounds decent, but remember, that doesn't include the time it takes for your application to get to them or for your new passport to get mailed back to you. You're really looking at a 6 to 8 week total turnaround for routine service. If you need it faster, you can pay the extra $60 for expedited service, which brings it down to about 2 to 3 weeks of processing time, or roughly 4 to 5 weeks total. Now, if you haven't renewed in a while, you might be in for a surprise when your new book arrives. You'll likely be receiving the next generation passport. It's got a much sturdier, multi-layered polycarbonate data page that feels more like a credit card than paper. It's packed with laser-engraved details and updated artwork that's meant to be much harder to forge. If you still have the older style with the flexible photo page, don't worry. It's still valid until it expires. You don't need to run out and get the new one just for the sake of having the latest tech, but it is a much more durable document if you're a frequent traveler. Before we move on to the next big hurdle, which is what to do if your passport has even a tiny bit of damage, I want to remind you to hit that share button. This information is a total game changer for anyone planning a honeymoon, a graduation trip, or just a long overdue vacation this year. Sending this to a friend might literally save their entire trip from being canceled at the gate. Okay, let's talk about the hidden reason for denial that catches so many people off guard: physical damage. In the past, you might have gotten away with a little water stain or a small tear on one of the back pages. Not anymore. In 2026, with the high-tech scanners being used for the entry-exit system in Europe and the expanded biometric checks here in the US, any damage to the data page or the electronic chip embedded in your passport is a major red flag. If your passport has a significant tear, especially on the photo page, or if it looks like it's been through the washing machine, the State Department officially considers it mutilated. A mutilated passport is legally invalid. I've heard horror stories already this month of people being turned away because their passport cover was peeling or because they had an unofficial souvenir stamp from a place like Machu Picchu or Checkpoint Charlie. While those stamps are cool memories, some border agents view them as altering an official government document. If you have a souvenir stamp that's covering up a legitimate entry stamp or security feature, you're asking for trouble. If your passport is looking rough, it's better to pay for a replacement now than to risk a $2,000 vacation on the hope that a border agent is having a good day. Now, if you're one of the millions of people who have embraced the work-from-anywhere lifestyle, 2026 is the year where the digital nomad trap is going to start catching people. For years, people have been flying into places like Portugal, Spain, or Bali on a standard tourist visa while secretly working their remote jobs from a laptop. In the past, you could kind of fly under the radar as long as you didn't overstay your welcome. But with the new entry or exit system, EES, in Europe and similar digital tracking systems rolling out globally, that gray area is disappearing. These new systems aren't just scanning your face, they are cross-referencing your data with tax and labor databases. If you show up at the border with 3 laptops, a portable monitor, and tell the agent you're just here for a 2-week vacation for the 5th time this year, you're going to get flagged. Countries are becoming much more aggressive about ensuring that if you are working on their soil, you are doing it on the correct visa. The good news is that dozens of countries have launched official digital nomad visas. If you're planning to work remotely abroad in 2026, do not risk being denied entry, or, worse, being banned from a region like the Schengen area for 5 years. Get the right visa. It takes more paperwork and usually requires proof of a specific monthly income, often around $2,500 to $4,000 depending on the country, but it's the only way to ensure your passport doesn't get a deported stamp that ruins your travel life forever. But let's talk about a real-world nightmare. What happens if you're already abroad and your passport is lost or stolen in this new high-security environment? In 2026, the process is faster, but it's also much more final. If your bag gets swiped in a cafe in Madrid, the very first thing you need to do is go to the State Department's website and report it lost or stolen using the online form DS-64. Once you hit submit, that passport is canceled within 1 business day. It's a brick. Even if you find it 10 minutes later under a couch cushion, you cannot use it. The global security databases will be updated instantly, and trying to use a canceled passport at a high-tech EES gate is a one-way ticket to a secondary screening room. To get home, you'll have to make an appointment at the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. In 2026, they are emphasizing limited validity or emergency passports for people in this situation. These are often issued within 24 to 48 hours to get you back to the States, but they are only valid for a short window, usually less than a year. Once you're back home, you'll have to go through the whole renewal process again to get a full 10-year book. My best advice for 2026? Keep a high-resolution color scan of your passport data page and any active visas in a secure cloud folder. It won't get you through security, but it will make the embassy's job 10 times easier when they're trying to verify who you are. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I know it can feel overwhelming. Travel used to be about just grabbing a bag and going, but in 2026, it's about being a document pro. To make sure you are 100% denial-proof for your next trip, I want you to follow this simple 5-point checklist before you even book your flight. First, check your expiration date. If it expires anytime in 2026, you should probably be looking to renew it right now. Remember the 66 rule: keep 6 months of validity and renew 6 months before it's gone. Second, inspect every single page for damage. If there's a tear on the cover, a loose page, or a water stain that blurs your info, get it replaced. Third, if you're going to Europe after the summer, apply for your ETS authorization at least 30 days in advance. Don't wait for the airport. Fourth, make sure you have a real ID-compliant driver's license for those domestic hops, so you don't have to risk carrying your passport on every little weekend trip. And fifth, sign up for the State Department's STEP program, the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. It's free, and it tells the nearest embassy where you are in case of an emergency, which is more important than ever with the current global climate. Before I let you go, I want to hear from you. Have you had any close calls at the airport lately? Are you planning a big trip to Europe this year and feeling nervous about these new digital rules? Drop a comment below, and let's get a discussion going. Your experience might help someone else in this community avoid a major headache. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your favorite travel buddy. Keeping this community informed and moving is what this channel is all about. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates as these rules continue to evolve throughout the year. I'm going to keep tracking the State Department and the EU announcements so you don't have to. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.